imagine spending your whole life being bullied for something that you have no control over. First, as a child, it was playing with the opposite gender's toys. Then as a teen, it was wearing the opposite gender's clothes. Then as an adult, after finally accepting who you are as a transgender, you are still bullied and not accepted in society. This is what a lot of transgender people go through throughout their entire life, just another never-ending cycle of oppression and bullying due to a lack of knowledge about their community, which can cause violence, both caused by people outside of their community, but also caused by themselves. So first I'm going to talk about the lack of knowledge about transgender communities, then I'm going to talk about the suicides in transgender communities, and then lastly I'm going to talk about the harm inflicted on transgender people by those outside of it. So Mickey Delmonico is a writer for the Huffington Post, and he identifies as a FTM, which is a female to male, and his story almost perfectly describes the lack of knowledge about transgender people. And he's also had a lot of problems with people asking about his surgery. Monaco says, when someone asks if I've had the surgery, they usually have no idea beyond the obvious what such a surgery would involve and the thought and preparations that have gone into it. He then goes on to list off all of the numerous surgeries that both a female to male and also a male to female person has available to them. But a lot of people don't realize how emotionally taxing but also financially taxing these surgeries are. But also it's just the fact that they do not understand that it's not just one surgery that encompasses everything and that would fix all their problems. It takes many surgeries for some transgender people to be comfortable with who they are and fit into society. Another fact that some people don't know about transgender people is that there's a difference between the word sex and the word gender. Gender spectrum defines sex as your gender assigned at birth based off your physical attributes such as your genitalia, your sex chromosomes, and gender. They describe gender as a relationship between sex but your sense of self as a male, female, both, or neither, which is your gender identity. So it's a relationship between sex and your gender identity. And a lot of people do not know this. They think that sex and gender are the same things. So really, just both of these examples, these are two of the bigger ones, but there are many other examples that show that people don't fully understand transgender people. And this lack of understanding really puts transgender people in a spot just outside of normal society. It others them, and not understanding the transgender community is a huge disadvantage to them because it can cause an increase in the suicide rates, but also an increase in the amount of hate crimes directed towards transgender people. So identifying as transgender is stressful enough as it is, but then when you add all the isolation and bullying and oppression, it becomes so much worse. Sage Journals did a survey with transgender participants that have talked about their past experiences, and 77% of them said that they have experienced verbal abuse, 55% said social embarrassment, and 58% said that they have experienced guilt from their parents. And this is all before their 15th birthday. So really, even before they got to be teenagers, they've had all this abuse, this embarrassment, and this guilt. And especially at such a young age, their mental health is not as strong. So having all of this really puts a detriment to their mental stability. And thinkprogress.org says that the National Transgender Discrimination Survey found that 41% of transgender people have attempted suicide, and this includes adults. So this goes to show that even adults have problems with mental health. So adults and teens really are struggling from all the bullying and the isolation. And another one of the causes of suicides is the lack of support. Everyone, including transgender but also cisgender, which from Gender Spectrum is someone who identifies with the gender that they were assigned to at birth. But everyone needs a support system, whether it's your family or your friends or just someone that you can talk to. But for a lot of transgender people, they don't have that support because there's no one there that understands what they're going through. They have no one else to turn to, really, and the cisgender population is really not helping that. It is perpetuating the oppression against them. So every year on November 20th, Transgender Day of Remembrance is held, and this day memorializes those who were killed due to anti-transgender hate or prejudice, and that came from the Transgender Day of Remembrance website. And there's a list on this website, starting at the top, the most recent kills, transgender people that have been killed due to hate crimes against them, and the list goes on for too long. So many people have been killed due to hate crimes against transgender people. And it's not only the murders that shock transgender people, but it's also just the continued oppression. According to BNC Public Health, trans people are subjected to invisibility in institutional settings, high-level discriminations and rejection, harassment and violence, and poverty. And this oppression can come from anywhere, not just institutional settings, but one of the biggest ones that has the biggest impact on them is their family. Oxford Journals says that families cannot necessarily be depended on to offer a safe haven for transgendered youth. Parents are often ill-equipped to understand their child, may not only be able to be unable to empower them, but also may perpetuate societal oppression. So because they don't understand them, they really can be harming their mental well-being, whether knowingly or unknowingly. And the organization that I chose that I think is best for both the transgender but also the cisgender population is Gender Spectrum. And I think it's best because it offers resources for both the communities. For cisgender people, it offers just information, definitions, and other resources to help make places such as homes, offices, and communities gender inclusive, and that came from Gender Spectrum. But for transgender people, it offers personal stories so they know they're not alone. It provides many important resources such as mental health, legal, social, religious. So just because Gender Spectrum has so many resources for both communities, cisgender but also transgender, I think that it's the best for everyone involved.